Beloved Community Talk.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our virtual Beloved Community Talks as we continue our series about building the beloved community during crises. My hope tonight is that you will be inspired, uplifted, and encouraged. That's what we're committed to at the King Center. We're in this together, and our commitment to you as our global family, I hope you're okay with me referencing you as family, because I even though I can't see you, I experience you as a part of my family. And so know that we are committed to helping us get through this hour and providing you with inspirational information and nonviolence tools as we all seek to build the beloved community, not just during this crisis, but as we emerge from this crisis. Tonight, I'm joined again by my wonderful co-host, an outstanding international speaker, has his own podcast that he created that he hosts called The Greater Story. Sam, how you doing tonight?
I am just so elated again to be with you on this platform, providing some sense of hope in this time of crisis. So excited. Love the hair.
Exactly. And so these past 2 weeks, as you know, we delved into the discussion about managing stress and anxiety during crises, managing fear, should I say, and anxiety during crises. But tonight, we want to move in another direction and talk to you about the necessary shift, because in case you don't recognize it, we're in the midst of a major shift in this world. And we want to explore the power of being other-centered, the power of being other-centered, and shifting from is all about me to really it's all about us. And we have just a dynamic person with us tonight who has inspired my life, had a wonderful opportunity to break bread with her years ago. She is a best-selling author, but the thing that connected us is that she is a spiritual thought leader. There are very few spiritual thought leaders in our world, and Marianne Williamson is one of those. And so we want to welcome Marianne tonight to this beloved community talk as we deal with the necessary shift. And so welcome, Marianne. And I just want to start here. You know, our world as we once knew it will never be the same going forward. You call it this multi-dimensional crises that we find ourselves in, and it has kind of forced us now to become more conscious of being interconnected and interrelated. And to some degree, we're now being more selfless. You know, the interesting thing is whenever there's a crisis, that part of who we are, that part that has the ability to step outside of self and really see the other, connect with the other, and do for the other emerges. But then as soon as the crisis is over, we kind of go back into our routine of focusing on our own lives and we forget about the other. And so can you just spend a little bit of time talking about what you call this multi-dimensional crises, and then share with us how important it is that we take this time that we are kind of all being forced to be more selfless and other-centered and incorporate it as a foundation into our lives as we move forward, even beyond this crisis?
Well, it's a multidimensional, and first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor. It's a multidimensional crisis, of course, in that every single level of our being is affected. It has to do with the external issues of politics and economics and society. And it also has to do with the psychological and emotional and spiritual nature inside. And of course, your father, who articulated all of this more profoundly, one of the great philosophical and political thinkers really in modern history, said that we need quantitative changes on the outside in our world, but also qualitative changes in our souls. And I think that that is what is being made very clear to us. He said there needed to be a revolution of values. Mm-hmm. And I think that during this period of forced pause, we're reflecting on the fact, or at least those of us who are seeking to delve into the level of deeper cause here and not just symptom, we realized that something was very wrong in the world, that it got to this. Regardless, with all the theories about where this virus came from, whichever theory you take, it came from irreverence to something, irreverence towards people, irreverence towards animals, irreverence towards planet. And if we go back to that same way of being, and I don't think the problem is with us so much as individuals. I think we're a good people. We try to live lives that are dictated by conscience, but we have not, even as President Obama was talking about today in his video, he said that we must take those same principles and apply them to public policy. And it was on the level of public policy that the American people were left so completely vulnerable to the ravages of this disease. So we not only have to be with the tension and the stress of this moment, which is very, very painful for millions and millions of people, but also, I think, grieve what we have lost, atone for what we know that we as a society have done and not done, that things would be this bad for our fellow human beings, and reimagine the world on the other side of this. Because it's like when an individual goes through a bad time and people say you're not going to be the same person, you're going to be bitter or you're going to be better. Well, our society will not be the same. We will either be moving in an authoritarian direction, which will be the product of an even more constricted me orientation, even a more constricted protection of a very few people at the expense of the many, or we will open up to a path of public enlightenment and more of a we-centered, more of a humanitarian rather than an economic or organizing principle. Those are big tectonic shifts. And as you said, this is what I believe everybody in our own way is thinking about at a very deep level right now, and need to be thinking about at a very deep level.
You know, we were talking earlier about my father's book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? And indeed, he was a prophet. But in that last chapter he has titled The World House, he talks about what you spoke of, the revolution of values. And, you know, I was saying, wow, if we had only listened then, because that was like kind of the warning. He said, we must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-centered society. Imagine with this current crisis where we would be. The effect of it would not be as large and as enormous as it is right now. And yet where we are now, because we didn't, in my personal belief, we're at that kind of moment of, you know, as he said, we still have a choice today between nonviolent coexistence or violent co-annihilation. We're at that moment now where, you know, if you don't, then the end result is going to be catastrophic. And I know, and I believe, and I think you believe, that there are souls, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and that there are those of us who are children of righteousness and children of light, who are going to rise to the occasion and do what is necessary to ensure that we make that necessary shift into the future.
Well, you can see all the people who are rising to the occasion even now. We're seeing such extraordinary demonstrations by doctors, nurses, everything from people in grocery stores to garbage collectors to first responders of every kind, even some of the political figures who have stood up and in repudiation of reckless and irresponsible ones. So I think right now we are seeing the best of Americans, but as you said before, we're always great in a tragedy. You know, Bernice, I've long said, one of the things I've said about your father, and I've talked about him this way, and also Bobby Kennedy, I've said every year after someone dies, it tends to get better and you're more peaceful and you're more okay with it. Mm-hmm. But I have felt with your father and Bobby Kennedy that every year it's gotten worse.
Wow.
Every year it gets worse because everything we feared would happen with them gone has happened.
Mhm.
And now, like you said, now we any conscious person looking at this, the way we were playing, skating on such thin ice, that our society has been so organized over the last few decades to protect the few at the expense of the many. Bernice, it's not just on the area of pandemics. This could have been anything. It could have been a nuclear disaster. It could have been a weather catastrophe. It could have been many things. And for us to really face, like you said, you didn't want to face it then. It's only gotten to the point now. I think we have some magical thinking where we somehow think our species could not destroy ourselves. But the truth is we could. You and I, when we were kids, we learned about evolution and how when a species is behaving in a way that is maladapted for its survival, it will either mutate, it will either evolve, or it will go extinct. Mm-hmm. And the mutations are people like your father and people like the great social prophets, the great religious figures, like you said, the people of light. And I'll tell you something else I believe very strongly. I think there are more people in this country and in this world who love than who hate. But we have to step up our commitment to what we feel. Those who hate are very serious about it, and they're active. Those of us who love need to be very serious about it and very active. And we have to hit the ground running the minute we're out of the house, because if we don't take a stand for what we all know now, it is unreasonable for us to think that the most horrible things would not happen.
Wow. I want to jump in and just throw an amen corner at everything that everybody has been saying here. It is just unbelievable. I want to take a second and shout out everyone that's watching online. I do want to let you know we are live right now with Marianne Williamson, and she is just incredible. New York Times bestseller. She's counseled some of the greatest in the world. And obviously the youngest daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is with us as well, Dr. Bernice A. King. This is a conversation you do not want to miss. I want you to send a text out right now. I want you to hit the share button wherever you are. Come on, give us a little bit of hearts right now. Get the interaction going and tell people that an incredible conversation is happening right now about how we can deal with this pandemic that we find ourselves in. Come on, share. I want to shout out Courtney Meadows, who was watching us. Adam Mesa is watching us. Denise Henderson is watching us. Come on, we want to say hello to you, Marvin Smith. Tell your friends to come out, because this is a historic moment truly happening now. Marianne, just to transition, you've been speaking, and you and Dr. King have been speaking so eloquently just about this idea of us as a society and as a humanity that has just been behind really in loving each other the way that we should when we talk about this idea of being others-centered and so on and so forth. Talk to us. Let's get a little practical for a second. Talk to us about the difference between being other-centered versus being self-centered, just so people can know if they're actually walking in the light or if they're walking away from it.
Well, as I said before, I think when it comes to our personal lives, everybody knows what it means. Everybody knows in their own way that we are here to love one another and that life works better when we do. And as I said, I think the average American does try to live a life that's ethical, that's honest, that's guided by conscience. I'm not saying we're better than other people, because I don't think we're better than other people, but I think we're as good as anybody else. I think we try. Where we have so fallen short, and which Bernice's father spoke to so eloquently, was not just where we fall short. We all do fall short sometimes as individuals, but where we have fallen so short as a society. And in some ways, and that was, of course, the tragedy of the assassinations in the 1960s, because there was a sense of a collective embrace of the idea that we could become a more loving society. And beginning with those assassinations and then some other political things that happened, over the last 40 years, our country has moved into an economic dominance that is not just about short-term, where our entire government does more to advocate for the short-term profits of huge corporate conglomerates than it does to advocate for the health and the well-being of people and planet and animals, to the point of, as we all know, a massive transfer of wealth into the hands of 1% of our people that control more wealth than the bottom 90%. We have 93 million people living near poverty in the United States. We have millions of American children. We have 13 million children in America who are hungry. Almost 40 million who live in poverty, almost 40 million who are hungry. This is the richest country in the world. We have millions of American children who go to school every day in schools where they don't even have the necessary tools with which to teach a child to read. And if a child cannot learn to read by the age of 8, the chances of that child graduating from high school is drastically diminished, and the chances of that child being incarcerated someday is drastically increased. Now, our political establishment does not usually really speak about those things because those children don't vote. And because the people that I just mentioned about don't represent financial leverage in Congress, and Congress has become so dominated by the undue influence of money, particularly corporate money, that these systems of injustice are now entrenched. And so what would it take to become we-oriented? It would take knowing, as Dr. King used to talk about, we are all part of a garment of a single garment of destiny. Look what's happening right now with COVID. COVID doesn't care if you're rich or poor. COVID doesn't care what color you are or what country you're in. The fact that we did not have a system which was prepared to take care of everybody. We didn't have a healthcare system that could take care of everybody. We didn't have an economic system that could take care of everybody. We don't have food delivery system that could take care of everybody. And that is why everybody is so vulnerable today. And those are the kinds of things that need to shift. It has to do with public investment in the things that have to do with protection and the care of the common good, and not just this almost orgiastic obsession with taking care of the financial interests of a few people.
So do you feel, Marianne, that there is something at a grassroots level that we can do and prepare to do, supposing the system that we're talking about and the people that are representatives in that system, supposing they don't make the shifts? And I'm not just speaking about the ones that are currently in office, because it just seems like there's a cycle politically that we've been in that we haven't been able to shift our priorities, even under, Democratic leadership, other Democratic leadership, other Republican leadership. So if that doesn't happen suddenly or soon, what can we on a day-to-day basis do as the collective humanity to kind of get us there, to begin to operate in some things in spite of that system that we know needs to change?
Before we went on the air, you and I were talking about an essay that you once wrote about your father's work. And you said you're missing a big factor if you only look at the political aspect of nonviolence. You're missing, and maybe you can find that essay because I remember it very well, because you were talking about his religiosity and his spirituality, and that it could not be separated from the politics. When your father studied the principles of nonviolence, he articulated them, of course, the original Gandhian principles that he applied to the struggle for civil rights. The point that Gandhi made is that the end is inherent in the means. If we want to be the kind of activists that can change the world, then we have to change too, because only peaceful people will be able to bring forth a peaceful world. Only loving people can bring forth a loving world. So what all of us can do in our own lives, whether we do it within a religious context or a secular context, is seek to purify our own hearts. One of the main principles of nonviolence that self-purification needs political activism. And I have always as someone who has studied your father's work and has studied Gandhi's work, we have to change. We have to look at the places, and I don't know how you feel, but I see it in my life, and I don't know anyone who hasn't experienced this. In this period of global pause, boy, stuff's coming up for me I'm going to look at some of my stuff because, so, we're a very adrenaline driven society, right? Almost addictively so. And a lot of the running around we do is in order to avoid, subconsciously, we're trying to avoid that deeper work. And I've had some very painful hours. I think everybody I know has. It's like, okay, Marianne, you don't have it together here. You haven't really atoned for that. You know that relationship where you thought it was all his fault? I got news for you. It was all your fault. You know what I mean? All these things. And I know that there's a reason for that. This is a period of time when we can go through so much cleansing. It's kind of an emotional and psychological detox, just like physical detox. The stuff has got to come up and be released. And I believe in this moment of Rilke, the poet Rilke used to say, let me not squander the hour of my pain. Let's go deep here. Let's get into this grief. Let's get into this. And it's going to make us, I believe, the people we need to be on the other side of this to make the changes that we need to make.
Yeah.
Wow. I want to shout people out that are watching. There are people from all around the nation right now that are commenting on this, and they are being blessed. They are saying thank you. And I want to continue. I want to ask you to share the hashtag, the necessary shift, as you are posting about this. Hashtag the necessary shift. Hashtag King Center. Hashtag beloved community talks. We are here again with the incredible, the incomparable Marianne Williamson and the historic Dr. Bernice A. King. Marianne, you ran for president recently, and what an inspiring presidency journey that you went down. I think as I was watching a Trevor Noah interview from you, one of the things that I just loved, one that Trevor spoke about, was the idea of you being consistent in who you are, no matter what platform you are on. You walking with a sense of, if anyone knows you, they know that you are connected to the spirit realm. That you are not afraid to call on those things and to speak. And you even referenced this idea that, Dr. Martin Luther King continuously, as he fought against the injustices of this world, called on a higher power, and different presidents calling on that higher power. As we kind of I don't want to round third base here, I want to talk about this idea of accountability. Now that we've been challenged with the idea of coming closer together to be the beloved community, of checking in a sense ourselves, and looking at the difference between being other-centered versus self-centered, how do we now hold the world accountable in a loving way, as you have done in your walk? So lovingly, how do we hold the world accountable without sounding crazy, but pushing that love out there? And then how do we hold ourselves accountable and our friends as we are in this time and everybody's going through some darkness?
Well, as Bernice's father said, God said, I have to love my enemies. He didn't say I have to like them.
Right. Amen to that.
So I don't believe there is love where there's not radical truth telling. And also love doesn't
wait a minute, man. Can you say that one more time?
I don't think there is love where there's not radical truth telling.
Wow.
And love does not always say yes. Love sometimes says no. And all of us know this who are parents. If you love a child, that doesn't mean, sure, you can go over to Cindy's house for the weekend if you know that Cindy's parents do crystal meth. No, you can't play with those scissors, you cute little 2-year-old. Get it right now. So love does not always mean saying yes. And when it comes to what is happening on this planet today, there are some lines that need to be drawn. And I believe that the importance of someone, once again, like Dr. King, is the demonstration there that we can say no with love. Dr. King did not pussyfoot around the reality of segregation. He did, and his famous line about, and I always hate to quote him if I don't have it exactly at the tip of my tongue. Bernice, I'm sure you know the famous one, any religion that purports to care about the souls of men, but does not address the economic conditions that strangle them, and the social and political and economic horror, is a moribund religion awaiting burial.
Yeah.
So I believe that those of us who are of the spirit-led are to be the conscience of society. You know, only a sociopath has no remorse. This society has things to atone for. And to me, it is love that points this out. So that's what I believe. And, you know, Donald Trump, he's an innocent child of God. I understand that. And I do in my way pray for him. I do pray for him. I understand. Nobody needs to explain to me that he's an innocent child of God. But he is also someone who, on the material plane, transgresses regularly against the principles on which this country purports to stand. And as an American and as a woman of God, I don't think I'm supposed to say, oh, okay, I don't believe love is weak like that. I believe that sometimes love says no.
Yes. And I agree with you 100%. I want to go back to something you said earlier, just to see if you can expound on it. You talked about basically that going forward, we're going to have to organize ourselves. And that's a key word that we don't need to pass by too quickly, but organize ourselves around humanitarian rather than economic. I guess it's bottom lines. Is that what it is? Or
Yes.
yeah. Can you expound on that a little bit more when you say organize on a humanitarian?
Well,
what does that mean for Jane, who's watching us tonight,
okay,
or John?
You know, the bottom line here is voting, and that's as we can make it all complicated, but it's not as complicated as we wish sometimes. When they passed the Voting Rights Act and when they passed civil rights legislation, I'm 67 years old. I was a teenager, but I was of a generation that really got, because of Dr. King, because of Bobby Kennedy, et cetera, we got that our highest philosophical visions could be expressed within a political context. And we were enamored of that. And I believe that what happened is that those assassinations caused such a collective trauma. Not only those three assassinations of the Kings and your father, then also when the students were shot at Kent State. I think a very loud, unspoken message told an entire generation of Americans to go home now. There would be no further protest. And we could do whatever we wanted to do in the private sector, but we better leave the public sector alone to whoever it was that wanted to control it so badly that they were willing to kill in order to do so. And we did that. We turned away from public engagement. We turned away from political engagement. And then when the Reagan years came about, and President Reagan kept saying that the worst words in the English language are "the government is here to help you." We disconnected from the idea of political activism as a tool that we all needed to be involved in. People got cynical, people got disengaged. Not that there were not legitimate reasons externally to do that, but what has happened is not only has this economic theory, trickle-down economics, which came about in the 1980s, the idea that all that a corporation owes is financial responsibility to its stockholders. Then a few people, the stockholding class, would make a lot of money, and they said it would trickle down and it would lift all boats. Well, it obviously didn't lift all boats. It left millions and millions of people without a life vest, and it brought us to the greatest income inequality in 100 years. Now, the next decade, in the 90s, there was an explosion of the ability of money to affect our government, to the point where our government has become a handmaiden to these corporate forces. We're not a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Functionally, we're a government of, by, and for these corporate interests. And what has happened is that they do more to our governmental policies do more to advocate for those economic interest than for us. If we're going to change this, Bernice, we need to get busy. And this mentality has completely taken over one political party. It infuses too much, in my opinion, another political party. And the only antidote to this is you and me. And we have to remember what your father said, that there is a power in us greater than the power of bullets. We need to get involved. We need to get involved on the level of the primaries. We need to look at what they did in Wisconsin yesterday. Those people in Wisconsin, the people, our fellow Americans in Wisconsin, they did so great yesterday. They were told you can't vote by mail. You have to show up. And those people showed up at the risk of their lives and being told by the experts, you are risking your life by going out to be with people. They showed up to vote. They overturned a very conservative Supreme Court justice in that state. So I think they deserve such celebration and honor today. And that's how all of us are going to have to get. It's not just organizing. It's, what I have felt over the last few years, most everybody I know, we have a critical mass of people because of the work of so many light workers, and certainly because of the example of people like your father. I believe enough people get it now. We just need to step it up.
Yes, we need to put it into practice on a day-to-day basis.
And we have to stop pretending we don't know what to do, because we actually do know what to do.
And we have to stop pretending that somebody else has the power.
Oh, yeah.
Power is in we the people. And I think we've surrendered ourselves too much over and over again to systems. And so tonight really, was about stirring up in people, that, we live in this collective world. And what is happening in our world right now, this crisis, is exposing some things, and it's calling up some things. It's purging us of some things, as you said, but it's also calling forth for some things as we move forward past this crisis, and understanding that what is going to be required of us is that we have to, in our self-care and our self-love, which is necessary, we have to incorporate an other-centeredness, a care about all of our neighbors, and not just those that we are in close proximity to, but those who, we may pass by on a highway, on an underpass, the people that they may not come into our eyesight on a daily basis, but nevertheless they're in our world, and they are suffering and struggling in ways that we can't even imagine. They're all a part of our global community, and we have the power to change this by our vote, and we have the power to change this by our behavior and our attitudes and our thought processes. We are interconnected, we are interrelated. And Marianne, I just want to, thank you for sharing that with us on tonight.
Well, thank you. It's exactly what you said. The love that will save the world can't just be the love for our own children. It has to be love for children on the other side of town and children on the other side of the world. And we're seeing demonstrated right now by so many people the love that will take us through this crisis. And we have to hold on to this love and extend it on the other side of this crisis too.
Yes.
100%. I hate to cut in because the conversation is just brilliant. I think a round two is going to have to happen at some point, or at least when we can get, when we're able to walk out again, you guys have to get together personally and continue. Maybe there's resources or other things that can even be created. I mean, this has been such an enlightening conversation. Marianne, you are amazing. I just want to say that again. Thank you so much for your heart and for what you're doing. And I mean, I don't know how much further you can go after you run for president. I don't know what, but I'm sure you'll figure out something even greater beyond that to continue to help our world become what it is. I just want to thank everyone else who has been tuning in. We are coming to a close. We are ending now because we know that you guys have things to do. The King Center, along with our partners at Civic Dinners, has made it possible for us all to connect, listen, in meaningful ways by hosting your own virtual beloved community talks such as this one in a dinner conversation format. Here's what I want you to do. Here's what we want you to do. Visit us on the website at www.belovedcommunitytalks.org for a step-by-step guide for registering and hosting a virtual dinner. Also, don't forget about the hashtag, the necessary shift. Listen, if you want to know more about what Marianne is doing, go to her Facebook. It is facebook.com /Williams on Marianne, which is incredible. You can just type in her name and it will come up. Go to Twitter, follow her at Mar Williamson, Instagram, Marianne Williamson, or just go to Google because she's amazing and I'm sure you'll be able to find her. Dr. King, any closing remarks?
Sam, in your words, you've been an amazing co-host. And so thank you for being with me on tonight. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Marianne, what can I say? I am just so always inspired by the work that you do, by the words that you share to elevate our consciousness. So thank you for moving us and reminding us of the power of being driven by love in this world and by understanding our commitment to the other. And so thank you again for being with us on the night and for sharing with us. And to all of you who have joined us via this virtual experience, I appreciate you joining us on a journey. This is a journey. We're on this journey together. And there's work that we have to do individually, and there's work we have to do collectively. And there's things that we have to shift in, and it's difficult to make these shifts. It's difficult to let go of old habits and behaviors and thought processes, but it is now necessary that what we've talked about, what we flirted with, become our new normal. It becomes our new lifestyle. Being other-centered is a lifestyle. And again, remember, it does not mean forsaking yourself. It means incorporating things that as you make decisions, you think about how that decision is going to impact others. Imagine if our policymakers who are part of different parties understood that as I make this decision, I got to think about other than my party. I got to think about people who are not a part of my party. I got to think about people who are not a part of my regular world of interaction. And so, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, members of my global family, we love you. We appreciate you. And let's make this necessary shift today. This is not a cliche for me because we're good at cliches. We're good at buzzwords. We're good at creating something that will get everybody's attention. But this is not about getting attention. This is life or death now, literally. We must make the necessary shift, and we must become other-centered, even as we take care of ourselves in this process. God bless you. Join us next week again. We will have Brene Brown. She's a professor and a best-selling author as well. She's known for her lectures around vulnerability and courage, and we'll be talking about courage and resilience during this crisis with Brene Brown at 7 p.m. next Tuesday. So until then, stay safe, stay connected, and stay well. We love you and have a good evening.
Thank you so much.